Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Goblin Trashmaster. Goblin, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing very, very well. I am very excited to make this happen. It is very exciting to finally get to meet you in person, per se. Now, before we get started on why you're here, I would like the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit first. She is a professional body piercer, a Twitch streamer, and a body mod enthusiast, as well as a suspension performer. Now, for people that don't know what a suspension performer is, can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how you make that happen?
So basically, I hang from hooks in my skin. They are brand new piercings each time. You'd be surprised how many people think it's fake. It is not. They are hooks literally going through our skin. They hang us up to the ceiling, and we just try to look as cute as possible for the crowd.
And I'm sure you guys have seen these happening, and it's amazing. It's an amazing form of art. Just like with Christmas, if you can put a hook in it, it's an ornament. So
Exactly.
it's amazing to watch some of the things you've done. And while we're talking about some of the amazing things you've done, like when it comes to suspension and the body modifications and stuff, you were in Inked magazine, you were on World
Yes,
Star, and you have suspended with Jane's Addiction. Like that is
I did.
fucking rad.
It
So
was so
how,
fun.
how did how did that come to happen?
So for the Jane's Addiction thing, actually, we had a tattoo convention in my hometown. It's called Star City. It was our first year. It was my first time suspending, and I got to meet a girl who was basically like, "Hey, I do this. Do you want to come do it with me?" I was like, "Oh my God, yeah." So I got to
Yeah.
suspend for 2 shows with Jane's Addiction. It was so fun. Dave Navarro is gorgeous in person, so sweet. And that
Okay.
was the same year that I got in Inked magazine for our first tattoo convention.
That is amazing. So what got you wanting to get started in doing suspension?
There was a documentary that I saw when I was like 16. It was called Modify,
Uh-huh.
and there was something about it. They showed just the entire process. It was back in the 90s, so it was like not as cool as we do it today. But there was something about it. I saw them and I was like, that is the person that I want to be.
Right.
So I eventually got to make it happen.
Well, it's good that you were able to follow that dream and be able to make it a reality, and you've done so much with it. And that's actually how you and I connected, was me finding you through doing these things. And I was just like, holy fuck, she's amazing. And I would love to know. Obviously, to me, body modification is its own form of art, but it's also its own form of horror, because a lot of people
Oh
look at
yeah.
that and they see the terror and how scary it is to be doing suspensions and stuff like that.
Yes,
Obviously, it's a very dangerous art form. Now, are there
absolutely.
any precautions you take beforehand to try to increase the safety of you and the people around you?
So many. The most important part of body suspension is your practitioner. If you are working with someone who does not follow the proper protocols, if your line isn't correct, if your like knots or lack of knots isn't right, you will fall, you will get hurt. You need to
Right.
know how many hooks to put in an area, and you need to know where the hooks need to go. Because some areas are just too thin. Like you can rip right through if you do it wrong.
Right. And it comes down to something like that, with like, it looks like the most metal punk rock thing you can possibly do. But when you're actually doing it, it is very choreographed. It is very by the book. It is very safe.
Yes.
And I think that that's very important to tell people that you're doing these things that can be looked at. I don't want to compare it to anything else, but much like pro wrestling,
Oh yeah.
um, there's a very real possibility of you getting hurt if
Yes.
things don't go exactly perfect. So the
Hmm.
fact that you're doing this art with your body and you're doing these things to show people not just how amazing it is, but for your own, gratification, to go up
Oh
there and
yeah.
do these type of things. Like, is that like, for me, landing a guest, like when I reach out to you and you answer back to me, that's like a high that I can't explain.
Yeah.
Do you get that type of feeling when you're suspending?
Absolutely. There is like literally nothing in the world I can compare it to. It is the comfiest feeling to just be up there. And then even afterwards, it is the biggest sense of like accomplishment. Because you get
Right.
down and you look at all this and you're bleeding and there's hooks everywhere and you're like, oh my God, I just did that. Like, that's so cool.
That's so awesome. And
It's
for
really
those of you
fun.
that haven't checked it out yet, I do have all of Goblin's social media links, the Twitch link, everything right down here in the description. So make sure you're following her so you can stay up to date on everything she's done. And if you've ever wondered about body modification or suspension, you can check out these links and she could show you through her work how this goes. So, um, if somebody's watching your videos or they're checking out your stuff and they get interested in body modification or suspension, what is some advice you could give to somebody that's looking to get into this for the first time?
Research whoever you are going to go to. That is the most important thing, is just research, research, research. There are a lot of people that are unsafe, and I'm always open to give people suggestions of a safe person in their area as well, because the dude that I work with travels everywhere and he's amazing.
Well, and you guys have that as well. So if there's anything, questions you have, you know that you could reach out, because safety first. If you're
Yes.
doing these things, you need to make sure that not just you, but the people around you are in the safest environment that they can possibly be in, whether it's be cleaning, whether it's, like I said, the cleanliness is
Yeah,
something
there's a
obviously.
lot of blood.
Right. And then making sure that nobody's getting hurt, falling, ripping. These are all things that are a very real horror story. So
Oh yeah.
make sure you guys are following Goblin at all these links so you can stay up to date on all of that. Now, like I talked about, this is a very real art form, and it's also a form of horror art, in my own opinion. Now, in order for you to be such a big horror artist, horror had to start for you somewhere, Goblin. So now I'd like to go back to the past, and boy, are we going to make an amazing connection here. I want to talk about your first horror movie, and Goblin, the first horror movie you watched was
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I got my apron right here in case we got to cut some
Oh
people
my
apart.
God, you too!
So, what an amazing film! A film that I've often said is credited as part of the beginning of the slasher craze. I personally would not call this a slasher. I think this is more of an art film. They don't go after people. These people have come to them, and they're like, "Get off my property!" They take it a little far, sure. But I've always looked at this as more of an artsy film than a slasher. Either way, it's fucking amazing. So do you do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
I'm always so bad with like ages, but I know for sure I was old enough to have a blooming sense of rebellion because my mom did not want me watching anything scary. So I'd be like anywhere between 10 and 12.
I love the fact that you're like, my mom didn't want me watching anything scary, so I watched the scariest fucking thing I could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
That's like going straight to Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like somebody telling you, I really hope you don't do drugs. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll try crystal meth. You're like, you're just going to go as fucking balls deep as you possibly can here. So
Yeah.
obviously your mom didn't want you watching these type of things, but you wanted to have a little bit of rebellion in you. Do you remember who you watched it with the first time you had seen it?
I was literally completely alone. Like, so I must have been old enough for my mom to trust me to not burn down the house. But we used to watch TV together a lot, right? So we were scrolling through. It was like October when the channels had like the horror movies on. And I saw a movie in the TV guide listing and it was The Shining. And I was like, oh, I want to watch that. I love shiny stuff. And my mom was like, no, absolutely not. That's scary. Stay away from this like anytime this month. I was like, okay. And I kind of kept that in my head. Yeah. So the second she left the house, like she went to get groceries or something. And I put it on. I saw it on TV. I was like, this is it. This is my time. This is whatever's on the channel. I'm going to watch it.
Goblin in the mirror. This is your time, Goblin. You're
Literally.
going to make this happen. So obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a movie that to this day is super influential. We just recently, as soon as last year, got another sequel in the franchise. Kind of a hard reboot, kind of the Halloween 2018 of the franchise. But that shows how important from 1974 this franchise is, and it wouldn't happen without the first one. So do you remember which scene it was from this amazing film that affected you the most?
I remember the ending because like Sally screamed so much throughout the movie, but there was something about that ending scene of her just driving away in that truck. And you could tell when her like laughter like kind of started when it turned from just screaming to like, oh my God, I made it. I thought she was the prettiest girl in the world. I was like, oh my God. There's something about it.
There's so much, obviously watching it as a young child, you don't comprehend everything in that situation, but everything that she's been through to be able to get away. And, obviously we've learned as we've gotten older, they're filming this in 110-degree weather in Texas. People are miserable. Gunnar had to keep getting up from that dinner table scene to go throw up because it was so hot. The meat was getting so smelly, and it really contributed into what this film became. And I could see as a young lady how impressionable that would have been to see this beautiful woman that's been slashed and tortured, terrified,
Yeah,
having the laughter when she's getting away, like she's broken at this point and she just knows I've made it. I'm
exactly.
okay. And it is a movie that it still to this day resonates with a lot of younger people because of how scary it truly is. You don't see a lot of blood and guts in this movie,
No.
and I think it's funny because I watched it as a kid and then I went back to rewatch it. I was probably 15 or 16, and I remember it being so much more bloody and gory than it was.
Yeah,
And I
it's
watched it, I was
not.
like, it's not at all. Like, don't get me wrong, it's scary, but it uses your own imagination against you. It makes
Mm-hmm.
you imagine what's happening. And I think that's way scarier than
Exactly.
anything you can show me on the screen. But
Yeah.
um, do you remember what your favorite scene from Texas Chainsaw is?
Oh man, I really liked when a little bit before when he gets super frustrated and just starts like twirling his little chainsaw. It was so cute. I mean, now it's cute. At the time, I don't think it was cute. I think it was probably terrifying.
Right, but you're right, because that frustration, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like I've gotten them all and she gets away,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
And you watch this movie, and especially now, as a 37-year-old man, you can sympathize with Leatherface in this movie.
A little
He's
bit, yeah.
simple,
Mm-hmm.
like he's a simple person that is heavily influenced by the people around him.
Yeah.
And when you are that simple-minded, it's much easier to be able to manipulate the brain and put it into, especially when you have that, you're a bigger person, you have that type of strength
Oh,
to
absolutely.
manipulate that into what you want. So I feel like the real villains here are his brothers. Like they're the real
Mm-hmm.
dicks of the movie.
For
So
real.
um the Texas Chainsaw Massacre now is a big franchise. There's a lot of films
Massive.
in this franchise, and um some much, much better than others. But what would you say your favorite film of the franchise is?
For I really, really like number two just because of the comedy. I think it was so lighthearted. I think it was really, really fun. It's a fun movie. They don't take themselves too seriously. And Bill
Yeah,
Moseley in it is just genius. He's amazing.
he is the man, and everybody
Yes.
knows that.
That's his movie.
Oh, 100%,
Mhm.
100% Bill Mosley's movie. And I've always been a huge fan of Texas 2, regardless of my status with Caroline Williams. Always been a big fan of that movie. So um, I personally, and a lot of people give me shit for this, 'cause obviously I love the original. I think the
Oh
original,
yeah.
it's hard to top that one. But the new, not number three
Mm.
Leatherface, but the newest Leatherface film that was a prequel when you had Bud and they were all in the mental institution and then they got
Oh
out.
yeah.
I fucking loved that movie, and people were like, "What are you talking about? Like
People did
that's
not
not even
like
a
that one.
yeah." I loved it. The only thing I didn't like about it was the twist at the end about how Bud wasn't Leatherface and ended up being the cute guy. Like I was like, "Ah, come on, man."
Yeah, that
Sometimes
was
the
so
most obvious
unnecessary.
choice, right? That's what you should have did with it. So, um, obviously, Texas Chainsaw, very, very brutal in our memories. And while there's not very much blood and guts and gore, still a very scary movie when it comes to the deaths. So, what would you say your favorite death from Texas Chainsaw would be?
I guess it technically she didn't die yet, but when he picked up the other girl, the blonde one, and just put her on the meat hook, I'm sure that didn't stick in my brain like whatsoever and influence anything.
I was gonna say if that was you now, they'd put you on there and you'd be like, "You got anything else, bro? Like, what are we doing here? You gonna lift me?"
It
Uh,
was just so dramatic the way he grabs her and just takes her in, like, oh my God.
yeah, and then just watching her face, yeah, as she's
Yes.
writhing, and it's to me that's such a scary, scary thing because when you watch someone get cut in half with a chainsaw, you got the obvious that hurt for 8 seconds, and then it
Yeah,
was
like
just
it's
done.
over.
But being hung from that hook and trying to get yourself off is just an infinite amount of pain. And
Oh.
I do you think that stuck in your mind at all for what you do now?
I don't know. I was thinking about that the other day too. I was like, maybe it wasn't what made me want to do it, but it's probably what made it look cooler when I saw what it
Right,
was.
right.
It
That's
had to have
so
done
amazing.
something.
So we did talk about how, obviously in Hollywood now remakes, requels, sequels is all the rage. This could be a double question for you because we had a Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake with Jessica Alba from
Oh, yes.
'03. Did you
Mm-hmm.
see that one? And were you a fan of that one?
I love the O3 one so much.
Mhm.
I
It's
really
funny.
do.
when it came out, I fucking hated it. But I
Did
was a
you?
I was that cynical punk rock kid that was like, oh man, I've already seen the original. This one's gonna be stupid.
I
I
feel
didn't give it
that.
a chance. But then, like the older I got, like I watch it, and, like the scene where Leatherface puts on her boyfriend's face and
Oh
walks out
my
with her boyfriend's
God.
face. Beautiful scene. I
It
fucking
was
one of my
so
favorite scenes
fucking
ever.
good. It
Yeah.
was that when he I think it had the best Leatherface reveal in any of the fucking movies.
Oh,
Just the
for sure.
grandpa like bring it. Like, oh
Yes.
my God.
And I've grown to very much enjoy that movie. It's gone from a movie I didn't even pay attention to one of my favorite remakes of all time, just because it's
It's
so true to
amazing.
the original story. But they went for it in this movie. It is
They
scary
did.
as hell.
It's so
And
good.
then the double parts of that. Did you see the newest Netflix original Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I
And
thought
what
you
were your
might bring
thoughts on
that
that
one
one?
up. Um,
Yeah,
I don't like to admit my thoughts on it because I kind of thought it wasn't that bad.
I
I
like
kind
it.
of liked it.
My thing with that movie is like, yes, it did exactly what Halloween 2018 did. We
Yeah,
know that.
literally.
We understand that. We respect
Mhm.
that. But um I didn't go into this movie looking for an elevated horror film. I went into this
No.
movie looking for a massacre that takes
Mhm.
place by chainsaw in Texas. And
They
that's
delivered.
exactly what I got.
Oh yeah.
The only thing, like, I don't like Sally Hardessy's character in the movie.
I don't think
Obviously,
that they should have put her in there.
no,
I don't think it was necessary at all.
thank you. If you take her completely out of the film rises another 5 or 6 points for me, just because it
Oh
was
yeah.
such an unnecessary. Hey, look what they did with Laurie Strode. Let's do that with Sally.
I get what they were
Unnecessary.
trying to do, but I hate it.
Yeah, because she was worthless. Like,
Yeah.
she'd finally seen him, and she's like, "Do you remember me?" And he just gets up and walks away, and you're like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like,
It
all
was
this for
so
that. But
stupid.
some of the deaths in this movie, like where he broke the guy's hand and jabbed the bone, like
Yes.
fucking dope. Like,
It was so
loved it.
dramatic.
Like, I loved the deaths in the movie. I loved the overall story. Besides, the Sally stuff, I love the sister
Hmm.
trauma that they have and how they're trying to create
Yeah,
the utopian society in Texas. I liked it.
exactly.
I'll take the shit for you, Goblin.
Thank
I
you.
like this movie.
I
So
liked it too. It's okay to say it. Even at
right,
like the little ending bit, I feel like they kind of nodded to the original when he did the little chainsaw thing.
yeah,
And that just warmed my heart so much. I saw that. I was like, oh my God. Okay, fine. I
right.
like the movie.
See, and I'm with you.
They
Like, I
got
don't.
me.
It was very, very controversial, but it seems like all the
Oh yeah,
big horror franchise movies that comes out now, they're all controversial. Either
of
everybody loves
course.
them or they hate them.
You
So,
can't win.
never. So we know that your horror life, Goblin, started with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and we know what that movie means to you. But now I want to throw a little bit of a curveball here for you for a second. My little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Goblin? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
That one's honestly kind of tough because I feel like I always just answer Texas Chainsaw because that's just the one that sticks so much. I did actually revisit the Scream series like last year, and those
Huh?
ones are probably right up there for sure. I really
Sure.
like the Scream series.
Oh, it's
Um,
at the
yeah.
time of filming, we've had 5 movies in the Scream franchise, and we're about to have another one. But I've always said that my favorite horror franchise is Child's Play. When
Ooh,
it comes to consistent, great horror franchises, the top 3 for me will always be at the time of filming because we're getting 2 new ones this year. Child's Play, Scream, and Evil Dead. I feel like when it comes to
I love
consistency,
Evil Dead.
yes, and like at the time of filming, obviously this episode came out little bit later, but we just got the red band and the green band trailer for Evil Dead Rise. Have you
Mm,
watched those trailers yet? And
not
are you
yet.
excited for? Oh,
I am excited though. I'm so
oh,
stoked.
yeah. And for those of you that don't know, Ashley and I are friends with a PA on the film, and they had to literally build a industrial sized kitchen to create all the fake blood they use in the movie. So once we heard that, I was
Oh
like, I'm in.
no,
I'm sold.
that's a lot of
So
blood.
yes. So I think I know the
Mhm.
answer to this next question, Goblin, but I still gotta ask anyway. I've had an amazing time hanging out with you, talking about your first horror movie, your favorite horror movie. But now I want to bounce back to Texas Chainsaw. And what we're gonna do here is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. What we're doing here, Goblin, is strictly ranking Texas Chainsaw on how much it affected you on first viewing. So, 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. A Goblin, what would your ranking of Texas Chainsaw Massacre be?
Probably a 5.
I figure that it's a movie
You
that,
know?
it's obviously whether consciously or subconsciously, it's affected your life, and it's made you the person that you are today. And I feel like that, I don't remember my first action film, my first comedy.
Hmm.
I don't remember that, but I remember the first horror film I watched because it
Oh yeah.
meant that much to me. So I said it at the top, guys, but we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll, the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, don't forget, I have all of Goblin's social media links as well as Twitch links down here in the description. So please make sure you're giving her a follow so you can stay up to date on everything that she has going coming up here in the future. And if you are interested in body modification or suspension at all, make sure you're checking out herself so maybe you can get educated a little bit more on that. And if you've never heard of it and you want to check it out, I know a really good person that can give you a good start. So make sure you're clicking these links down here to stay up to date on that. Goblin, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.